Marie Curie, born on November 7th, 1867, was a Polish-French physicist and chemist best known for her groundbreaking discoveries surrounding radium in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. The issue primarily with her work was the fact that most saw it as invalid for a really long time because of gender bias and stigma. In fact, a lot of her research wasn't even recognized until her husband Pierre Curie endorsed it, since many other male scientists wouldn't even look at it if it was written by a female.
The gender gap in STEM isn't anything new. In fact, the divide has been around since the 1800s, before STEM even had a name. Marie Curie is just one example of the countless women whose contributions to humanity were undervalued or undermined purely because they were female. This issue lasted for decades and wasn't even fully recognized until World War II.
World War II ended up creating a lot of new things. It ended up creating new alliances, new treaties, but one of the most important things it created was the direct result of industrialization during wartime. Even though the Industrial Revolution was mostly concluded by the start of World War II in 1940,
America was still probably the biggest industrial power there was. When men were drafted off to war, that left a lot of job openings in factories, communication centers, and a lot of generally important wartime operations. Meanwhile, a lot of propaganda was produced to try and get women to come and fill in for the men at these jobs.
meet Rosie the Riveter. Originally stemming from a poster in Westinghouse Electric Corporation, Rosie soon became a primary role model to working women during World War II. But she wasn't the only piece of propaganda that was published during this time. There were countless amounts encouraging women to come and work in these formerly male dominated fields.
Around the end of World War II, when all the soldiers were coming back, most of them were, looking for their jobs. Most women were actually not that willing to give their jobs back. Some even just flat out refused in general. STEM wasn't a thing at this point, but this was one of the first known uprisings from women based upon specialized jobs within the workplace that have a technical orientation to them, like scientists, machine engineers, communication specialists, things like that. This would later become known as STEM. As I've recently established, the gender gap isn't a new and miraculous thing. In fact, females only make up 25% of STEM careers in the United States. What is new, however, is the age that women are at who are starting to feel self doubt in their own abilities to perform well in STEM centered activities and careers. I want you to meet Noemi Marayo and Alba Ayuso.
These two are affiliates of the University of Valladolid in Spain, in which Alba has degrees centered around pedagogy, education, and Noemi has a telecommunication engineering degree. They came together to write Analysis of Barriers, Supports, and Gender Gap in the Choice of STEM Studies in Secondary Education.
One of the main factors found between girls who are interested in STEM as opposed to those who aren't is the idea of role models. Quoting, on the other hand, a study conducted by Microsoft among 11,500 girls across Europe establishes a connection between female role models and girls' interest in STEM. So, girls who know female role models should show almost twice the level of interest in STEM as girls without them. The problem is accentuated by the fact that 64% of the girls interviewed were unable to identify any woman who excelled in STEM. Basically, for the remainder of the study, they've asked both teachers and students questions regarding their experiences in STEM. The teachers' questions were more based on how they were educating their students in STEM and helping them. The students' questions were more based on girl versus boy, as well as did they see a future in STEM, and also to name a STEM role model. Most of the STEM role models that were named were actually men, very few were female. The general conclusion of the study was just the fact that since there are so few female role models in STEM, it's causing a decent decline in females who are actually getting interested in STEM.
Role models are one way that we as a society make perceptions and judgments. Adolescents below the age of 18 are incredibly perceptive to situations around them as they grow and develop. What does it look like in a student who experiences gender exclusion while trying to learn about STEM fields?
Hi, my name is Aurora Mon. I go to Cabarrus Early College of Technology. I'm in 11th grade.
Hello, I am Asrita Jagalamudi. I'm a freshman at CabTech.
My name's Madison Pena Flores. I'm in 11th grade.
I want to go into computer science, specifically into software engineering. And then, even then, my job, I would really love it to be a full stack developer.
And an area of STEM that I'm really interested in is AI, particularly the ethics of AI.
I'm looking to go into engineering. Not quite sure what field yet, but any engineering.
So, in elementary school, I took a summer camp it was just some basic coding things. We would be in Minecraft and we were supposed to learn various things. It was very Java focused, I think. It was just me, this other girl, and then everyone else in the class, including the teacher, was a guy. And they were all white, and yeah, sure, they were about the same age as I was. But I was me and her, the other girl. We were both very, very discriminated against.
It would just be like the intimidation of being the only girl in the room again. And if you aren't a complete genius in the subject material, you're either assumed to know absolutely nothing, or or guys will just try to explain everything to you, every single thing to you, like they're explaining it to a 5-year-old, even though you're not 5. Like, I might not know everything, but I'm not that clueless.
Women in STEM, it's been a hard process because you have multiple people telling you, you can't do this, you're not strong enough for that, you're not smart enough for this. Um, Not only that, being a brown woman in STEM makes it even worse because then you have people that think that you can't do something because you can't understand it, even though it is in your first language, or you've grown up here.
We While everyone else was able to learn a lot of different stuff involving Minecraft and even going ahead and creating their own mod packs, we learned things like, oh, today you're going to learn how to move this character forward. The next day, today you're going to learn how to move the character right. And that is all we got to do. And then, even on top of that, because she was a white girl and I, don't think I am a white girl, um, I was even more discriminated against. We were supposed to sit at different computers every day, but I specifically had to sit at this one computer. Even if I sat at a different computer that worked better, I would be told by the teacher to get up and move to this different computer. I assumed that was discriminatory because there was no other good reason. I could not sit at the better computers. I had to sit at the one that did not work as well.
Show interest in something techie related, it's always a little annoying when a guy tries to quiz me on something that I have an interest in just for having an interest in it and expressing my interest. Like the first day I was at the Cyber Patriots Club at my school, I sat down and this guy was like, "Hey, so do you know what functions are?" Do I know what functions are? Absolutely. I've been using them for years.
There's been a lot of things definitely that people have told me, um, such as you can't reach that goal, you can't do this just because you can't do this.
All right, so I've talked a lot specifically about how bad the gender gap truly is this entire time and how specifically it's forming very early on in adolescence. Um, but not all hope is lost. I do want to show some amazing organizations and companies that are working really hard to try and close the gender gap. First one up is Girls Who Code. They're a nonprofit and they've been working for years to try and close the gender gap, specifically in computer science. It's really easy to start a chapter, and they offer summer programs that are live or even asynchronous. And it's a really good way for younger girls to get involved in computer science, to try it out, as well as it primarily focuses on female and non binary students. So it's a really great introduction to computer science, as well as it's a very non-conflict zone. Another one is Girl Powered through RECF. That's the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation. They offer robotics summer programs across the United States to try and get girls interested in robotics. Most of these are female only programs, as well as they offer scholarships and resources through RECF that are only available to female students and non binary students. There's a countless number of organizations I could bring up that are doing miracles bringing girls up through STEM. But what I did want to bring up before this documentary does end is the fact that even though it looks really bleak right now for women in STEM, um, at this point in history where we are at now, we are much more close to getting this gender gap closed than we have ever been. And even though it does look bleak, even though it does look like it might never close, um, I do believe that one day it will be closed and everyone will have an equal opportunity in STEM.